What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, coming to you with another episode of all Packers news and notes as they begin to wrap up, or as they have wrapped up OTAs this spring, and now we kind of go into the 5-6 weeks of the doldrums until training camp starts. And here to talk all that news and notes with me is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm well. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm vibing,
Good.
taking the world as it comes to me, kind of thing, as you know. Um, couple of I guess major quote unquote things to talk about today. Jordan Morgan to be talked about, Kenny Clark to be talked about, as well as a little bit of Jordan Love in there as well as GM Brian Gutekunst was over on Cheesehead TV talking to Aaron Nagler and Corey, whose last name I do not remember,
Thank you.
Benke. So he was over on on their YouTube channel earlier this week. But before we get to that, a couple of things to not correct, but just speak on. Last week talked about the Packers playing in Brazil and sort of the controversy surrounding Josh Jacobs' appearance on a podcast last week and what he was being told about the Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles playing in Brazil, talking about how they couldn't wear green and how they couldn't leave their hotel room. Um, a Packers fan that lives in Brazil, I think it's at Packers BR, which is just the Packers Brazil account, came out Friday morning, actually, and talked about just the misinformation being spread about just Brazil in general and the fact that like everybody can wear green. And I think it was a bad game of telephone that had happened in the NFL that just nobody in NFL HQ or within any sort of franchise between the Packers and Eagles got to explain what sort of the circumstances around playing in Brazil were going to be. And so he had to say that's the Packers at Brazil. I'm sorry, at Packers BR. I had to say that wearing green just fine, not an issue. He equated it to being similar to wearing Michigan colors in Columbus, Ohio, being the Ohio where Ohio State is, and vice versa, and things like that. So glad to see that that isn't going to be an issue, and glad to see that it's rather just ignorance on the NFL's part communicating expectations and circumstances around the game versus actual players being endangered and fans being put in a difficult spot having to wear certain colors in Brazil. So that is good to hear.
Very good to hear. And hopefully there's not any more further miscommunication
Yeah,
when it comes to
I'd imagine.
I wonder, I hope that the prevailing, how like people what they hear first they take to heart rather than like the clarification of it
Yep,
all.
yep,
I think that's the biggest key and stuff like this of that you hope that further misconstruement of news or what how things work and all that stuff, it doesn't get affected here.
right, exactly. So glad to see that got resolved and that there shouldn't be any more problems moving forward. So with that being said, let's hop into the good news. All what was it? Why am I blanking? 11 picks that the Packers had this year, right?
Yes.
All 11 picks that the Packers picked in the 2024 NFL Draft have been signed, as Jordan Morgan was the last one to sign, which he did this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, as reported, as announced by the Packers Thursday afternoon. 4 years, $14 million, 100% guaranteed, and roster bonuses due on the fifth day of training camp, according to Kent Engels, the Packers cap guy. So, was always going to be signed, obviously, unless something catastrophic happened. So glad to see that that didn't happen, but glad to see that this is now put to bed on the last day of OTAs, and they don't have to go into the lull of the off season between OTAs and training camp trying to figure this out. They just kind of figured it out, and they're ready to focus on scheme, game plan, and signing a couple other notable current Packers extensions and getting their contracts figured out rather than having to deal with rookie deals.
Yes, I wouldn't understand why that would take as long as it did, but we'll see. Yeah.
A lot of it was like, from what I've seen people talk about, is like depending on where you live and where you plan on spending a majority of your season or a majority of your
Oh,
year. So, like, if you live in a place with high income tax, you might have your income be sent to your bank account during the season for the most part, rather than outside of the season when you're earning that money in a state with a higher tax bracket.
yeah.
And I think it's a lot of that. But um, obviously, we're not Jordan Morgan's agents. Neither
Or
Jordan Morgan's
accountant.
agent or an accountant, nor in the Packers front office. So we don't know
Yeah.
those inner
This
workings, but
isn't
that is what I have seen.
CNBC's Power Lunch,
That's right.
which is the name of a real program.
Which is crazy. But 14 million dollar deal, which was like always going to be the deal, and then the he gets 7 million as a signing bonus. So a good chunk of his deal right away, which is
Yeah.
good for Jordan Morgan, which makes sense to me too, because like if you're gonna be signing Jordan Love to an extension, we'll talk about Kenny Clark in a minute, as well as like your other uh, specialists that are due deals in the next couple of years, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and a few others.
I mean, all these draft classes, they're gonna have.
They gotta get
We're,
paydays soon,
we're gonna be
right?
talking about like 4 or 5 guys of note that will get paid. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Right. And so getting half of Jordan Morgan's deal out of the way when their cap is still relatively cheap, not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So glad to see Jordan Morgan signed, get his uh get his contract out of the way. In OTAs, he has been active amongst in practice and just in what the Packers want out of him. Zach, I always second guess myself on his last
Bruce.
name. Cruz reported for Packers Wire that Jordan Morgan was playing across the line all of OTAs. He played left tackle, left guard, right tackle the throughout OTAs, and I think that just really hammers home Matt LaFleur's and Goody's preference to put the best five on their line, right? Because like we came into this offseason trying to figure out like will Rasheed Walker play left tackle or will Jordan Morgan usurp him there? Will Zach Tom move into center to take over Josh Meyer's spot if that's the case? Who's going to play right guard? Is Zach Tom going to move to right guard and Jordan Morgan go to right tackle? I think this idea of figuring out having him play essentially all four positions outside of center is just evidence of them, like you said, or like I said earlier, trying to put the best five on their line out there. And I think we could probably expect a similar situation last as we saw last year, where besides EJ and Josh Myers, there's kind of a mix and match across the line throughout the season.
Fluidity, interchangeable positions in some respects. But yeah, I think it's a formula that the Packers have hit on, and it keeps guys fresh. And rather than just talking about one guy beat or a locked in offensive line and all this stuff, this is where draft and develop comes in handy. You know what I mean? Like
Sure
as
does.
much as the offensive line, had a lot of question marks of going into the draft, and especially free agency, given some starting positions up for grabs, kind of thing. Between Jordan Morgan, oh, I'm blanking on other guys that they drafted.
Oh
Jacob
yeah.
Monk, Glover from Kentucky. They signed Andre Dillard, who's gotten some looks in some uh, Packers tweets I've seen over minicamp and everything like that. It's not going to be. I don't think everything's going to be really settled until week 1 for sure. And then the season's a entirely different bag. But yeah, just the kind of, you know, like you can't blame them for kind of exploring different options and different looks, even if it doesn't meet the criteria of like putting out the best five. It's about seeing what you have at your disposal and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Um, from strictly OTA reporter notes, Travis Glover was the other offensive lineman we were talking about.
Yeah.
Um, Andre Dillard has not looked good. Apparently, there hasn't been a lot of good news from camp or OTAs on him. Andy Herman tweeted out today, I'm sorry, Wednesday, yesterday, um, that Rashawn Gary absolutely smoked Andre Dillard and he was on the ground. And that's like been how OTAs have went for Andre Dillard. So, like we kind of had talked about initially when we had signed or when the Packers had signed him, a flyer if not anything else. At this point, it's looking a bit testy if he makes the roster or even makes it to training camp.
I mean, that's, yeah, not to be, I'm not surprised by it. We
No,
talked about how, if you look at PFF, he was the left the most sacks of any offensive lineman last year.
right?
I don't think that's something that you want to be first in.
No, yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I won't.
Offensive lineman. Um. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Again, what someone looks like in June could easily change come the start of training camp,
Oh yeah.
preseason games,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't mean that the Packers front office is infallible. Infallible?
In
Why did
fact,
I say
I
I know, but I mishmashed invaluable with infallible.
you did, but
Um,
infallible, yeah.
there you go. It's not like they're infallible about roster decisions. They might, yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna, it's too early to be like, they're going to have him on the team. It's like, we don't even know. So we'll
No,
see.
the Packers make like a variety of these moves in the offseason where they just let him go in training camp because that's how roster construction works. You get your 53-man roster back up to 90, and
Yeah.
then you cut back down from there in August. So, yeah, that happens every year. Like, naturally, the Packers are going to make, quick math, 37 bad decisions throughout the, I should say 37 because sometimes the guys on contract prior to that, but a handful of bad decisions
I
from the
love
off
that you
season.
pulled out that number.
I tried. I did quick math. Um, technically like 27 because then you have 10 practice squad guys you'd hope would be from your camp, but that's nitpicky. So
I'm going to say 14.
sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
um. So yeah, I think like other news out of training camp, just like play wise, it looks like on Tuesday, Javon Bulliard got the start next to Anthony Johnson Jr. as Xavier McKinney was out of practice, just off day for him, and looked pretty good. I think in the couple of videos I saw, like you can glean from what is that early to mid June OTA sideline footage, what you may, but he looked pretty good. And also, I think he just has a good attitude, as we'll talk about a little later in a different video the Packers had put out on social media. But just to see him get looks is good. I've also like seen just multiple tweets from like Matt Schneidman and Andy Herman that he's like played well in training camp or in OTAs as well. My apologies for keep screwing up the names of whatever practices they're having right now.
No TAs. They have no TAs anymore. Let's start
They
with
don't
that.
have no TAs. Other teams,
Yeah.
particularly in the AFC East, have no TAs. The Packers are not a
I don't know
participant
who you're
in
talking
no
about.
TAs. I don't know who I'm talking about either. I'm just throwing out divisions and
Yeah.
at random per se.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out at random and their boozy shakes they have on Thursdays. because they're yummy. Anything else on? I guess I have other things on OTAs. I think what laughing at me. I forgot that I saw that the offense looking pretty nice. The defense looking pretty nice. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the Packers beat reporters. I forget who. I'll try and Google it here quickly. But it looked like there was. Here we go. This is from Matt Schneidman from Wednesday's practice. Matt LaFleur says this was in his press conference. There was one play during practice on Wednesday, he thought the offense was going to trick Edgerrin Cooper on. Cooper sniffed it out so well that Matt LaFleur asked the defensive coaches if they showed Cooper the practice script, and they hadn't. So, if Edgerrin Cooper wants to make me eat my words on me doubting him during the draft process, I'd be just fine with that. I would love to be wrong and have them have a standout linebacker like they're apparently slated to have if he keeps up his instinctual play like this.
I'm excited. I want to see good linebacker play. I don't want to talk about a linebacker that has trashed the Packers
Mm-hmm.
on his way out.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also like, when have we had? Is it AJ Hawk and Nick Barnett?
Oh my god, I was like 11 years old.
I'm just saying, like, two young linebackers that you thought were going to be, boom. And they got there
Yeah,
eventually.
they
Nick
got.
Barnett was not, if I remember correctly, he was not healthy at all during the Super Bowl year.
Nope, he was not.
So, shout out Desmond Bishop.
I thought you were gonna go a different
I was
route with
just
that, and
No, I was just saying originally. I was originally going to say Sam Barrington, but I believe he was more later.
I thought you were gonna shout out the 5-6 club, but we'll
What?
leave that there. Are you not aware of this?
I am not.
Uh, off Broadway, in Green Bay downtown, when Nick Barnett was
Careful.
what?
I feel like we're going down a slippery
No,
slope.
there was a bar that um I believe Nick Barnett had a role in opening, and it was the 5-6 Ultra Lounge, and it had some problems over the years, but it was just a club downtown. That's all I have to say about that.
So,
That's all it was. Like I just knew it to be a club when I was a kid downtown. Never
yeah.
I didn't know where it was until like 5-6 years after it shuttered, like after Nick Barnett had left Green Bay. But I just know that when he was around, um, there was um, just a club in Green Bay. So we can move on. That's what I thought you were gonna say. Is what I'm getting towards. Also, Sam Barrington pulling that name out of your hat.
What? I remember these names.
I suppose you do, but that I haven't heard that name since I think legitimately 2007.
He did not play for the Packers then. He played 2013 to 2016.
There's no way it was that soon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Was he was after Barnett
That's
with his
crazy.
5-6 club.
That is legitimately crazy. That Sam Barrington seems like an eon ago. Whatever. Anyways, anywho's will be. Um, did you see anything else on the field that you wanted to talk about between uh Twitter videos, anything like that?
I mean, we can segue to Jordan Love.
Do you want to
Saw some
segue to Jordan Love or Kenny Clark first?
ooh,
Let's do Kenny Clark. I'm gonna make
Kenny Clark because I
the
feel like
executive
Jordan Love
decision
will. Yeah.
because in part we'll get to it, I guess, now. Um, Kenny Clark had mentioned in his locker room interview this week that he and the Packers were having uh, initial talks on contract extensions for him, and he said that he wanted to end his career in Green Bay, which I think obviously is notable. What's also notable is that the Packers are historically hesitant to hand out third contracts to their players. Um, Goody was on with Cheesehead TV earlier this week, and I believe it was Aaron Nagler had mentioned in context of talking about Kenny Clark's third contract extension that if it gave them, my words, the yips at all to sign Kenny to a third deal, knowing how David Bakhtiari's third deal went, and Goody had talked about how Kenny Clark is younger than most of your third deal candidate guys. Like he's young for his draft class, and so that puts it in different context. And then signing like an older player for the draft class, 24 versus 22 or 22 versus 20 kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so uh, I know that the looming Kenny Clark extension has been a topic of conversation a bit on our podcast, as well as just in the realm of Packers fans who pay attention to these kind of things over the past couple of years. I know we talked about it in context of how important Devontae Wyatt's production and growth is as an interior defensive lineman, as well as how Carl Brooks and Colby Wooden's development is, how that plays into Kenny Clark's extension and if they would give him one. But to hear that they're having initial discussions about bringing him back for a third contract and plan on having him finish his career here, I think is significant. Like, it's not too long ago that we forget about how they let Mike Daniels walk. Like, Mike Daniels, another guy that they, I
Yep.
believe, drafted, right? They drafted Mike Daniels, I'm pretty certain. Um,
Yes.
he didn't get a third contract, ends up going to Detroit, not having the biggest impact, ultimately retires a couple years
He was
later.
a if memory serves true, he was cut.
He was a training camp cut.
Um, now that I'm looking at Wikipedia, July 24th, 2019.
Yeah, which is 5 short years ago. Like,
Yeah,
that,
before LaFleur's first year.
right. And so, like, Mike Daniels, for all intents and purposes, during his time in Green Bay, was what Kenny Clark is now. Like, I think they were of equal talent. They had, as far as I can allude without looking at the stats, like similar forces inside, and they didn't give Mike Daniels a third contract. And now they're looking at Kenny Clark and having initial conversations with their camp to get him that third deal, and maybe they get it done, maybe they don't. But as a Kenny Clark fan, as a Packer fan, like I think it kind of gets glossed over how important Kenny Clark is to that interior defensive line and their defense in general. I'm guilty of it for sure, but he's entering his the I think the final year of his deal, and so
Yes, yes.
if there's a time to get an extension done, it's now.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not that hard to kind of understand the stakes, understand that despite a lot of investment on the line, and especially at D tackle with some emerging faces, Kenny Clark is still kind of the stalwart. He is the example by which the others are trying to follow. So extension could easily mean it could be short years. It could be, I mean, like it's kind of misleading. There's still, or it's not misleading, but vague. We don't know what that still looks like. Um, but as far as the productions there, Kenny Clark looked pretty damn good, and especially when it mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't anticipate that really slowing down at all. And he's been very durable. That's the other thing. We haven't really we talked about him maybe missing. I mean, probably going to game logs
He
now, but
had he didn't play. Oop, I'm sorry. I'm on Mike Daniels' page, not Kenny Clark's. I compared the two, so I have that comparison for when we're ready. But he missed one game his sophomore year, 3 games in 2018, 3 games in 2020, one in 2021. Otherwise, that's it. So out of a total of X amount of games, I can't do that quick math in my head. He's only missed like 5 to 6 games over the course of his career since 2016 when he was drafted.
Yeah,
A
and
model of consistency.
it's very possible if you look into those absences in 2020 that might be COVID related
Could
as
be.
well.
Yeah. He missed
Um,
3 in 2020, yeah.
but yeah, I durable, productive, a leader too, like
Mhm.
that. You
Definitely
kind of
leader.
have to. And I mean, the other thing is like you look at Preston Smith among the older, not much.
Aged
He's older than Kenny Clark, but not much by not by much.
he aged like
Sorry,
fine wine, he said it in the Athletic this week.
yes, he did. Um, but yeah, you just kind of need those guys to have around, especially with a young defense. And until, frankly, I would just until someone makes things hard decisions have to be made. You know what I mean? Until
Oh
someone,
yeah.
sorry, until someone emerges and can kind of like, oh, is that the cornerstone defensive lineman? Then you can make hard decisions, or then hard decisions have to be made. But
Mhm.
there's still a lot to get there in terms of someone establishing themselves as the heir apparent, as we have seen all up and down this roster
Right.
plenty of times recently.
I think that is an important context too. Like Mike Daniels played for the Packers from 2012 to 2021, and Kenny Clark was drafted in 2016. And is obviously, I'm sorry, Mike Daniels played for the Packers from 2012 until 2018, and then Kenny Clark was drafted by the Packers in 2016. Obviously still plays for them, but going back to the stats I had referenced earlier, Mike Daniels in his career, he played until 2021. He played with the Packers until 2018, had 1 year with the Lions in 2019, and then played the Raiders in 2020 and 2021. 124 career games compared to Kenny Clark's 123 career games. Um, I think AV is average value or approximated value for NFL stats on Pro Football Reference. Kenny Clark, 62 to Mike Daniels 47. Uh, Kenny Clark has 34 sacks to Mike Daniels 30, 216 tackles to Mike Daniels 172, 7 forced fumbles to Mike Daniels 2. So like for all intents and purposes, just a better player in less games, like more sacks, more forced fumbles, more tackles, and I don't see why he wouldn't be a great candidate to finish out his career in Green Bay. Obviously, that isn't always how it works, particularly in the NFL. You sign your third deal. By the time you get to the end of that third deal, you're likely a cap casualty when you're a
Yeah,
player of Kenny Clark's stature and ability. Like, he's
yeah,
going to get a big deal. A lot of interior D linemen got big deals this offseason that he's better than. So
yeah.
that's going to be an important context of if they get a deal done or not. He is still young. He's let me double check his age. I think he's still only like 28. He
He'll be 29 in October.
Yeah. So still less younger than 30, which is pretty impressive. Like I said, he's younger for his draft class, and so we'll see. But I think for all intents and purposes, I think you and I would be pretty happy to see Kenny Clark finish his career in Green Bay, or at
I
least
would.
spend the majority of the next 3 to 4 years in it.
Oh yeah, This is he's already a Packer Hall of Famer for sure at this point.
I'd say so. If guys like Aaron Campman can get in, not that that's not to disparage Aaron Campman, but like
Hey, 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 hey,
I
hey.
hey, what is it, Fed Albert? But like I think I looking up Aaron Campman's career numbers, I think Kenny Clark just kind of probably has him beat. As I get the results here, I'll promptly hopefully don't put my foot in my mouth. Aaron Campman, equal amount of games right now, has 58 had 58 career sacks, 338 tackles, and 11 forced fumbles. Obviously, a different position in a different era, but yeah, I'd say they're about equal.
I'm just looking up on Spotrac right now, and just looking at top or like the rankings by position in terms of just pay, like cap hits.
Yep.
Kenny Clark had the highest cap hit of 2024. So think of last season
On the
going
Packers,
into, yeah, of the NFL.
he had really.
So before the big free agency moves and extensions that have
I'm
been
sorry,
had.
4 interior D linemen.
For interior D linemen,
Okay,
yes.
not the biggest cap hit in the NFL.
No, but that's what I meant. Like
Right.
biggest cap hit of interior. No,
You
yeah,
said that, and I was like, the biggest?
yeah. Kenny Clark by that same stat is 20th for this year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, a
In
lot
part
of a
because
lot
of
of players got paid this offseason.
a lot of players got paid. In part because of how his contract is set up.
Mm.
It turns out it was very front loaded. It's
Mm-hmm.
now back loaded, so therefore, but yeah, it just goes to show you the rapid rate of what it means to pay your, you know,
Three-time
top
Pro
dollar
Bowler interior defensive lineman. Yeah.
bingo.
Um. Yeah. Anything else on Kenny Clark? Otherwise, we can move on with the defense a little more.
Um, no, I think that sums up with Kenny with Kenneth. What's the frequency, Kenneth?
Okay.
That's REM. That's an REM song.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
58 years old.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. I think what also could be interesting is just seeing how Kenny Clark plays in Jeff Hafley's system. There was a lot of talk this week just about how much I think the defense has really enjoyed how Hafley has coached the defense thus far in their offseason program. Um, First up, I guess we'll talk about Preston Smith. This is from Matt Schneeman after his Wednesday press conference with and at his locker. That's not his press conference, but his locker talk. Uh, again from Matt Schneeman, Preston Smith on if Jeff Hafley is using him differently. Quote: "Yeah, man, finally I'm out here rushing more, and I get to get after the quarterback a whole lot more. I just love the system." End quote. Matt's rest of his tweet says, "There's a big smile and smirk here too, and keep in mind Preston and Joe Barry go way back as well." Like, not having Preston drop into coverage is probably the best thing for him if he can get after the quarterback. Like, we saw that a lot last year. I think what he had, I'm pretty sure he had 10 sacks last year, around there.
I think it was 8.5.
Something around there. It definitely was a decent number for Preston Smith.
The
But
baseline for him is always 8 sacks, so I'm
yeah,
gonna guess it's around there.
um, but again, Matt Neiman had written an article for the Athletic, um, earlier this week on, I think it was published on Wednesday prior to that locker talk. But just the staple of consistency for Preston too. Same thing that like has been Kenny Clark's calling card as well. Matt Statement said in his article that Preston Smith has played 153 of 154 potential games between the regular season and the playoffs in his career, missing one game throughout his entire career, his entire 10, 10, 10 years in the NFL. It's pretty good, I'd say. Pretty good.
Very good.
And so, uh, just to um, see him in good spirits and really having a good uptake on Jeff Hafley's system along with the rest of the defense, I think is really good for this iteration, this season of the Packers defense, because we know we have Rashawn Gary as like one of the premier edge rushers in the NFL. Hopefully takes that big leap to become like the premier edge rusher in the NFL with the new contract that he had signed last year. But then their second edge rusher obviously is Preston Smith, but with him being 31 years old and obviously not getting younger, he's not Benjamin Button. But that second edge rusher is kind of up in the air for them right now. Lucas Van Ness entering his sophomore season. Brenton Cox Jr. hoping to have a bigger role in the defense coming into this year. Kingsley Enagbare coming off of an injury in the NFC divisional round last year against the 49ers, and how he's operating. Like, they don't have, outside of Preston, mind you, that next up edge rusher that can put pressure on the quarterback when needed.
Yeah.
And so if Preston is feeling good, like he said, we mentioned earlier in the pod that he's feeling and aging like a fine wine. If he can continue to keep around uh, that baseline at 8 sacks again in 2024, that's great. That's really
Yes.
good.
Yeah. Not have him go back into coverage like he's doing the Super Bowl shuffle under Joe Barry.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Um, no. So yeah, just to have that kind of second banana with um Rashawn Gary and even Kenny Clark. Just kind of just being disruptive. That's attack, attack, attack. The Hafley voice. That's gonna be the biggest thing of just putting everything together and making sure all this positive kind of it's not wishful thinking, but just the honeymoon phase continues into the regular season.
Right. Exactly. Um, we gave context about Kenny Clark's third contract in contact with David Bakhtiari, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. Continuing with Jeff Hafley stuff. Keisean Nixon was on Up and Adams, K Adams show on, I believe it's just YouTube,
FanDuel.
FanDuel YouTube, FanDuel TV and YouTube. Um, and he talked about how he just loves playing under Jeff Hafley, and that Jeff Hafley isn't afraid to challenge Matt LaFleur on the defensive side of the ball and is going after the offense. And I think that level of intensity is something that all of these guys are like becoming huge fans of. Like I don't want to say Joe Barry wasn't intense because I don't know the man. I wasn't there at practice. I wasn't there in the film rooms. All of this, but I don't know if you've seen it on social media and press conferences and or I'm just going off what others have seen as well. All of these guys seem like they're pretty energized by Jeff Hafley's defense between Preston, Keisean, Kenny, and Jair. They all seem like they're really enjoying the first 3 weeks of OTAs.
The principals are happy and therefore I am happy because that is it's about it was always about engaging the top the guys that are going to the straw that stirs the drink. They're going to be however this Packers season shakes out. They're going to be responsible for how far they go. And Jair will we talk plenty about it. We'll continue to talk plenty about it, but he didn't get back on the right path after clearly not seeing eye to eye on with many things with Joe Barry and therefore the entire coaching staff. Other things were more not as pronounced or more subtle, but I'm sure the secondary, if you ask them of how they wanted to play, they would probably say,
Yeah,
"I don't think this is the ideal way to play."
yeah.
I just and we talked about like when Joe Barry, the whole thing finally happened, is that Joe Barry was. It's not that he's not incompetent, but he just was a very reactive kind of defensive coordinator.
On the whole, yeah.
And on the whole, yes. And even like it shouldn't have to take fighting for a playoff spot to change how you want your defensive shape, your scheme,
Right.
your outlook.
That's the biggest thing.
Or and we come back to like what the defense looked like in the playoffs, and it looked great. But it's the whole. It's on the whole, not these individual instances of like, well, you got that, but then you also have this, and then you
Hmm.
have that, and then some guys really blossomed into be like, oh yeah, that is the Carrington Valentines, the Isaiah McDuffies, the kind of guys that we didn't talk about as being the tone setters, make plays and kind of set themselves up to be not just rotation guys, but starters in some cases.
Right.
But when it came down to the main principal guys, you know, you have balance, but you don't have guys really making that next step,
Hmm.
in terms of like, we know the potential with this defense. It's just got to be fully realized. And
Right.
it's it's good to see uh, just a lot of players take to Jeff Hafley and you know it not it I it's going to be very much like, oh, this is what they had and look at where they're upgrading. Until we see it on the field, I'm still going to have some caution of,
Right.
let's not get carried away kind of thing. But
Right.
still,
It's
let's
June
see.
13th. Like, we have 3 months until the Packers have even played one regular season football game. And so we have a bit to see. And training camp will say a lot about that too. But we have time before we can actually do a full assessment on Jeff Hafley's defense. But
Yeah.
I think for where we're at in the offseason, this is as good as we can kind of hope for. And so I think, like, above all else, these guys just want to be coached, right? Like, I think the
Yes.
biggest thing that comes to mind for me when I think about Joe Barry and the defense that he kind of coached and ran is, I think it was 2 years ago or pre Razul trade last year. I think it was 2 years ago when they played the Vikings, when they got cooked week one by Justin Jefferson and company because they didn't put Jair on Justin Jefferson. And then once they had the Minnesota game at home, I forget if how it shook out, but I remember it specifically being like Jair telling Joe Barry that he's covering Justin Jefferson,
Yeah.
and like Joe Barry's been like, "All right, yep, go for it, fine with me," kind of thing. Like, that's not how
Yeah.
that should shake out, right? Like, the coach should be saying that, should be giving direction to the entire defense of how their defensive scheme is going to go into the week, not the player having to take the reins on the defensive scheme and their game plan to cover one of the best wide receivers in football. Like, that
Yeah.
just isn't how that should shake out. And I think
That.
if it has to come to that, then it's like, what are we doing kind of thing from the defense. Like, why do I have to pipe up and say this versus my coach just having that idea from the get go?
Yeah.
And so obviously they haven't been in a real game with Jeff Hafley yet. It could be horrible. Knock on wood, it isn't. Hopefully, it's good, but we'll see it as the season unfolds. So, I think that's all I have on the defense. Should we move on to the soup the off season? I don't know what French for off season is. I was gonna say jour, but soup of the day would be the same soup of the day for the last 3 months.
Um. Let me look it up. Whole saison.
All right, and that soup flavor is Jordan Love's expected contract extension. We're still not at training camp, but before Jordan and I pressed the record button on today's pod, uh, it was announced that Trevor Lawrence has struck a deal for his extension with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sources say that they are giving him a 5-year extension worth 275 million, 55 million a year, with 200 million guaranteed, and the full contract is 142 million fully guaranteed. So with that being said, I'm sure Jordan Love and his agent are just rubbing their hands together. Same way they were with Jared Goff, same way they were with all the other NFL QB contract extensions in this offseason. Like, I think Trevor Lawrence's deal is probably the top end of where Jordan Love kind of lands at 5 or 275 would be my guess, because I think the uh, prestige and the shine of a number one overall picks extension probably garners him getting a bigger second deal. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they've won the same amount of playoff games.
They have. You're correct. And you say top end, it can't go higher because Trevor Lawrence is tied with Joe Burrow for the highest average uh, highest average salary per year for a quarterback.
which is honestly crazy to me because like Burrow has played at a pretty high level, made a Super Bowl, obviously lost, has been injured, so like take what you
Twice.
will from that, but has
Back to
been
back first overall picks. Yeah.
right, has been pretty good, right? Like Trevor Lawrence makes not makes, but wins a playoff game, I think against the Raid
Chargers.
Chargers. Yeah.
Brandon Staley's Chargers.
Yep. 2 years ago now, I believe. Not last postseason, but the postseason before that. And but then didn't do well last year. They didn't make the playoffs this past year, particularly with Calvin Ridley, their new receiver they had coming into last year. And so it the context of where this falls and how this will affect Jordan Love's contract extension is yet to be seen. Obviously, they haven't announced a deal. Um, Aaron Nagler, like I mentioned, was on Two Said TV again, hoping that they get something done before training camp. He said he wasn't overly concerned. He said that both parties want to get something done. They're just waiting to get it done. Kind of not waiting per se, but they're still just working through it. I'd imagine if I'm one to speculate that Jordan Love and his camp are just waiting for deals like this. They want to get as many of the existing contract or QB contract extensions on the books for other teams to see what the highest price point they can demand is because you're not going to short yourself out money if Daniel Jones is getting 40 million a year from the Giants and other teams will like honestly I think the biggest thing for Jordan Love and his camp right now is just seeing where Dak Prescott's extension comes in because if I'm Jordan Love in his camp, I just point to that contract and be like, "Hey, I beat that dude in a playoff game last year. I want $1 more than he did, and I think he's going to get a bigger contract than Dak. I'd imagine."
I mean, he might have a contract more than Dak. That's the other thing.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Six quarterbacks are going to be earning over $50 million on an annual salary. Those are Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and of course Trevor Lawrence. Patrick Mahomes, obviously notable for being under that.
Under quote unquote, despite getting 400 million
Yeah.
guaranteed. Oh, I don't think it's
Ninth,
guaranteed, but regardless,
Trevor Lawrence is the ninth quarterback to earn over $100 million guaranteed, joining Deshaun Watson, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and Josh Allen. Josh Allen being at 100 million is kind of that's very cheap
I think
considering.
just guaranteed, right?
Yes, just
Yeah,
guaranteed, but still. Um, yeah, he's gonna get paid. To your point of Jordan Love is not a first overall pick. He doesn't have nearly the uh, numbers of Trevor Lawrence, who's been good, but not what I think a lot of people thought he would be. And it's not all on his shoulders. I digress. Um, Still, he could say all these things. He could look at all these things and still say he's won a playoff game as many as Trevor Lawrence has,
mm-hmm.
and he's just ascending. There to pay a
Only
quarterback,
25, I'm pretty sure.
only 25, clearly found something in the middle of the year last year, and you don't really have to have that much of a prolific like career to earn big money because of just where the where the positions are as we segued from talking about like where defensive linemen are getting money. When it comes to quarterback,
It's the same thing. Yeah.
it's yeah, it's out of this. It's so disproportionate to the rest of the league, really.
Yep.
Um, and again, we'll continue talking about it until he signs, and surely after. But I just don't think it's that much of a shock. There'll be a sticker shock for sure of you're paying him all that money based on what you've seen, and it's like, well, that's not all. You know what I mean? It's always playing the future bet, and
Right.
people are going to be the contract that he signs. It's going to be eclipsed by what's already been signed,
Yep.
and what will be signed next year,
Right.
the year after that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the shelf life of all these kind of big money contracts, it doesn't see Jared Goff's contract after Trevor Lawrence's contract doesn't surprise me as much,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
I think also worth noting that Dak Prescott has count them one, two postseason wins. One in 2018 against the Seattle Seahawks, in which he had one touchdown and one interception, and in 2023 against the Cowboys, against the Buccaneers, where he had four touchdowns and zero interceptions, but then followed that up with the loss to Dallas, um, with one touchdown and two picks. So, like, Dak's probably going to get a big deal, right? He's in big deal range as a 30-year-old quarterback who has been leading a team to decent records his entire career. And so how that shakes out, I think, does matter. But again, I think Jordan Love and his camp are going to be waiting to get as much data as they can on QB contracts to see what the most they can get out of the Packers, and more power to them. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm with you. Like, that's the most common. How do I put this? I guess thread throughout the entire NFL is like, you're one of the best players at your position. You don't go more than 2 years without talks of an extension because you want to be paid in comparison to your peers. Like, Justin Jefferson just got the biggest deal for wide receiver ever, I'm pretty sure, because
Oh, I'd imagine, yeah.
he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, if not the best receiver in the NFL. And then, like, that was after Devontae's deal. That was after, I think, Jamar Chase got his new deal. Or whenever Jamar Chase's new deal comes up, he'll get more than Jay Jettas because
Yeah.
he has a claim to being that type of wide receiver over Justin Jefferson as well. And the Bengals aren't gonna not pay him that money, right? Like, you don't just let a
Yeah.
player of that caliber walk for nothing. And in today's NFL, you don't get as much out of trades as you would like in a superstar, supermax NBA guy. Like, you just don't get that value back in the NFL like you do in other sports. And so
No.
they're gonna have to pay him 180 million, 200 million as a wide receiver. That's just how it shakes out. And so I'm not concerned. I just think that's why this is taking as long as it has, is that new deals are going to keep trickling out of camps, out of other franchises. Jordan Love is playing this year, I think, on a $20 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
I'm looking at his cap hit for this year is 25th. That is behind current backup quarterback for the New York Jets, Tyrod Taylor,
what is
and
his
as
what is his total cap hit?
5.2 million.
What was it last year?
It was higher because it was front loaded.
It was 20 million last year, right?
It was 10. He was earning 10, and then his cap hit was 12.7.
Got it. Maybe I'm conflating that his total extension was worth 20 million, but I might just be mistaken. He signed a 1 year $13 million extension last year. Got it. Okay. So, regardless, his cap hit this year is 12 million, it looks like. Yeah. and he had $5 million cap hit last year. So, I mean, that says it right there, right? His next extension is going
Yeah,
to be probably triple that, at least.
I would imagine.
And so they just want context of what they're the most they can get paid is. So I don't blame them.
Yeah, and I feel like Jordan Love is just anything that's going to happen with him is going to be met with this. There's part of us like, yeah, he deserves it. He's a quarterback. He's
Right.
proved himself, and there's going to be the other sentiment of that's an extension of why the Packers drafted him in the first place. You're giving him, yeah, maybe it starts with why you drafted a quarterback when you have Aaron Rodgers in place. Then why are you moving on from Aaron Rodgers when you don't know what you have with Jordan Love? Then it is why are you paying him when you've only seen so little? Yeah, I mean, it's just never going to go away. And I don't really understand that. I think it's, I guess that's part
I
of what
mean, for
comes with.
for what it's worth, like I do see the why are you paying him with so little tape discussion. Like I can't fault anybody who like has a hesitancy to pay him top 5 QB money because of the tape we've seen. Just because like at the end of the day they did start what 2-7, Jordan, something like that, two
I
and
think the
five.
shoots give or take, yeah.
It wasn't good, right? That middle stretch of
No,
the season when they weren't home for a month and a half was bad. He was making poor decisions. He was making bad throws. He didn't look the most comfortable in the pocket. But then that all is I'm not I don't want this to become off as like I'm a Jordan Love hater because I'm absolutely not. But that all gets forgotten by the second
because
half of
of
the season in the
yeah.
playoffs when he looked spectacular. And so, do you pay him on the spectacular or do you extend him on the not so great? Because there's probably hesitancy and there's a big gamble to be paid by to be made by the Packers if they pay him on the spectacular and his regression is just average QB in between the not so great when they weren't playing well and the spectacular. Do you know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, he's better than Daniel Jones. But he'll be getting Daniel Jones money and then some. And
Well, Daniel, I think we use Trevor Lawrence as a better example because Daniel Jones is a punching bag.
okay,
We all know
I'm fine with switching the analogy.
because to me, if you really think about it and reading up on Lawrence's contract, their seasons were flipped in reverse. Jacksonville was really good at the start of the year. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, doesn't play as well when he gets back, and Jacksonville's season slides.
Yep.
They make massive changes. They don't get rid of their coach, nor should they, because Doug Peterson's a good coach, in my opinion. Um, but they don't make the playoffs. They lose the division, a division that they honestly probably should have won. Um, all that stuff, and there are probably people looking at Trevor Lawrence today getting paid top dollar, even though he's a first overall pick, even though he is this guy that we talked about from Clemson when he was a freshman. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about Trevor Lawrence for a very long time, and he's been good, but
Yeah.
he is not this franchise changing. Nothing is Jacksonville. The floor has been raised, and it certainly can be raised further,
Right.
but nothing is. I just don't see them as this. It, granted, playing the AFC just kind of naturally just does this, but they're not close to contending
No.
against the Chiefs.
No. Not even close.
Not even close to the
The
Bills.
Bills,
They're not the
the
Bengals.
Ravens, the Bengals.
Raven, like yeah, I
Like
mean, like
they're definitely in the 7-8 range of that conference.
So with that in
Even
mind,
in their own division, my apologies, they're like neck and neck now. Pre CJ Stroud, they were neck and neck with the Titans, and now they have to contend with the emerging Texans.
and we don't even know what the Colts are going to be because they have a really good quarterback that got hurt
Yep,
pretty
with
early on.
Anthony Richardson and got hurt last year. Yep,
And if memory serves me
they
right,
were
they still made the playoffs, right?
last year. I don't think so. I think they
I
were.
don't think
I think they were
Texans
meant to,
took their
but
spots.
they didn't make it in Week 18.
Yes. Still, like, I don't know. Um, I just think you can have all the data in front of you. You can have more tape than what Love has. You can be talked about as this elite, once in a generation type quarterback, and get big money deal. And what does it really do for the team that is paying them?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's still that is still what Jacksonville should do. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
You don't let that walk.
Uh.
But there's obviously bigger questions about their overall team building, the people that are responsible for to build that team, and all that stuff that it runs independent of what Trevor Lawrence does. But what I'm saying is, as much as those things scare me about Jordan Love, it's just not having that security, which you obviously can't do in a decision like this, or can't have in a decision like this. I just don't. I don't think that ultimately matters to me because you can see what was in front of you and still make that bet. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I totally get it. And so
Yeah.
you
We're still
just
shrugging our shoulders.
because we don't know, right?
even
Like it's
we don't know. We don't even know if he's going to crack top five. It's going to be a big raise, of course,
oh right.
but could it be still something that's more modest in comparison to what we have been seeing
Uh
going to
huh.
quarterbacks this offseason?
Right.
I kind of think it might.
I'm of the opposite opinion. I think it's going to be a pretty mm, huge deal, in my opinion.
It's going to be huge, but I don't.
Not huge in context of money. I think it's going to be huge in context of his peers.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I know one thing's for sure. Goody and Jordan Love both hate talking about it. The
Yeah.
the scrum at at Jordan Love's locker after OTAs, they talked about it, and he could only give like 2 word answers. I'm sure he's sick of it. He just wants it to be done, kind of thing. But he did say that he is in the know when it comes to his contract discussions and the negotiations. Like him and his agent are actually talking. Like there's other players that prefer not to be in that discussion, just let their agent handle it. From what Jordan Love said, that he is like aware in essence of the numbers that the Packers are pitching, etc. So
Yeah. I'd like for him to be looped in.
yeah, me too. Always you get the Freddie Freeman situation, and that's never good.
What?
Yeah. Um, anything else in Jordan Love? Otherwise, we got one little piece of food business to attend to after this.
No, you can't buy me love, but you sure can sign that extension. That's what I'll say.
I swear to God, I cannot believe it took you a year and a half to make that joke. That's crazy. I hate how much I love that. All right, the Packers social media team did a good thing this week. Yesterday on Wednesday, they put out a video of the players walking out to OTAs to build the ultimate sandwich. And I wanted to do this with you, Jordan, because this sounds like a lot of fun. Because we're not foodies, but I think you and me both love a good sandwich.
Yes.
Uh your favorite was Keyshawn Nixon, who just said
Carrington Valentine.
Carrot
Carrington
Valentine. He
Valentine.
just said bread.
Brad. As he's laughing
Other
up the hallway.
other guys had just PB and J. I forget who it was, but somebody else had PB and J and ham, which is a crazy addition to PB and J. Other guys did the full gamut of full sandwiches, and Jordan
Someone said put vinegar on there. Did you hear
on a
that?
on a PB and
Did you
J,
see that?
or
No, it was on a full
that's not
sandwich.
that's not like uncommon. Like think about like Jersey Mike's does like Mike's way is lettuce, tomato.
I don't like Mike's way. Get out
I
here, Mike.
I don't either. I'm just saying it's common enough for an entire franchise to make it their go-to dressings or toppings on a sandwich.
Why?
It makes sense in the context of a
What do
of,
you
of a
think he
flavor
was doing? He's
profile.
like, yeah, I'm just gonna dump this red wine on here
It
and
makes
then just
sense in the
like makes it
context
a
of a
soggy
sandwich.
sandwich.
It makes sense in the context of a flavor profile of a sandwich. You get the acidity of of vinegar, salt and pepper. You get like savory with the meat and the cheese. The bread to
Yeah.
soak up the vinegar. Like it's not like soggy.
I want my sub to be a sponge. That's what Mike is thinking.
Okay, so with that being said, we now know that you're not putting vinegar on your sandwich. If you had to make, and I forget who it was at the beginning, someone had to say it. Who's 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 53? That's not Cooper, is it? Who's 53?
I was wondering that too.
Packers roster number. We're gonna look like dummies as we try and figure this out. 50.
Aaron Mosby.
Aaron Mosby said that he needs to do it the Scooby Doo way, and that's how I want you to think about this sandwich. What do you want on your ultimate sandwich, Jordan? What kind of
Okay,
bread I think is an important. Oh, I love you.
sourdough.
I knew I always loved you.
Sourdough. The sequencing of where you have things is
Yep,
very important,
it is very critical.
as I may know in another life. Um, uh, for me though, oh yeah, okay, sourdough. So you got the base, toasted too. This is very key. Turkey, ham, bacon. Crap. Let me start over. Sourdough base, lettuce,
Okay.
turkey, ham, bacon, tomato, red onion, and then I would say like a little dollop of mustard.
Okay.
You could go yellow, you could go Dijon.
Ooh, I do not like Dijon. I'm a yellow like I don't love mustard in general, but like I don't care for Dijon outside of like once a year. It's weird. I'm not a big fan of it.
Once a year is a very interesting way of how you say that. Do
Well,
you like it on its own,
like a dip
or are you
for
talking about a recipe?
like dipped for a pretzel. Like if it's
Oh, like a big
like a
pretzel.
soft pretzel. Like
Okay.
if I dip one bite of my soft pretzel in the Dijon, I'm like, that was fine. I don't want to dip the rest of my
Dijon
pretzel in
on
it.
its own gets you kind of get like that
The
in the back of your
the
throat.
phlegm.
Yeah. But I've grown to really like mustard as I get older.
I like a nice like a thick like ground mustard. So yours was
Brown mustard's good.
toasted sourdough,
Yes.
lettuce, tomato, red onion.
Lettuce. No, lettuce, meat, turkey, ham, bacon.
Okay.
Then tomato, onion,
Topped with mustard.
top with yeah, just a little bit.
Gotcha.
Dude, I'm basically making a club. That's
Gotcha.
basically what I'm doing.
That makes sense. Um, I
I'm
think.
making my own 5-6 club.
Oh God. Um, Mine is also sourdough. I think from
It's the best
where
bread.
I can't say specifically. Not that it matters. I like.
We're just talking about Jersey Mike's.
I know, but no,
You can
like
say it.
no, not that like I know specifically is what I'm trying to say. But
Oh,
I will say
is it Sara Lee?
no. Troubadour Cat or Colectivo's bread company has a really good sourdough that I enjoy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll go with Troubadour. That's a free ad. Sourdough, and then avocado on the bottom, and then
Oh yeah.
lettuce, uh, chicken katsu, like that kind of like panko breaded cut like chicken cutlet. That there, throw a few slices of bacon, not overwhelmingly bacon, but there, along with heirloom tomatoes on top of that, topped with pepper jack cheese, and then
Mm,
on the top of the bread is a chipotle aioli covered,
yeah.
and I didn't mean to say toasted bread. I want
Panini.
panini pressed,
Yes.
and
You
then
want a pressed bread.
yep, that's mine. So
Press the bread.
that's right. So between the bread, avocado, chicken katsu, bacon, or I'm sorry, avocado like mashed spread,
Yes.
lettuce, chicken katsu. Oh, do I want? I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change my top part. Actually, no, I won't. Smashed avocado, chicken katsu, bacon, heirloom tomatoes, pepper jack cheese, chipotle aioli, topped in the panini press, cut a diagonal. Fuck me up.
Hmm.
Let us know in the GSPN Discord what your favorite sandwich is. If you had the
Yes.
Scooby Doo sandwich, there was a good discussion in the Packers Palace channel today about that.
Is that how Shaggy? If I haven't watched Scooby Doo in a long time, I'm an adult. Is that how Shaggy makes the sandwich? Is that
That's
why he said that?
well, no, but like you've seen like a Scooby Doo sandwich, right? I suppose you just
Yeah,
said
I'm
you
an
haven't
adult. This was
watched
a
it.
long time ago.
I'm an adult. A Scooby Doo sandwich is famously like just stacked very like
It's like
literally
cartoonish.
literally Jordan, it's cartoonish.
Are you mean to tell me that Scooby Doo is a fake? He's a fictional character?
He is in fact a fictional character, but I can see in your eyes that you're
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Now I remember.
they're
Okay,
huge and like towering. And like
that's way too much.
no. No. I need that in my life, frankly. Also, I want your opinion. What is your opinion on a chopped sandwich? Where you have
What do
all
you mean by
your
chopped?
so do you, so you've never heard of this?
I possibly have, but
So
for the
a
listener.
chopped sandwich, okay. A chopped sandwich is your regular like sandwich ingredients, but then they're put into like a bowl, and then you chop all of the stuff together, and then it is almost like a salad of sorts, like a tuna salad or a chicken salad, and then that just goes on the bun. But you can do it with like any regular sandwich ingredients. Usually,
Fan. I'm a fan.
yeah, I'm a huge fan. Like,
I like that. I like deconstructed anything. Like I like just having different flavors
yeah.
of or remixes.
Mm-hmm.
Remix Chikikatsu.
What is your opinion on chicken salad?
I don't eat it that much.
Do you like it?
I do.
That wasn't convincing.
I I do like it some. I've only gotten into like eating egg salad though recently.
I do not like egg salad. I should say that. I lied. Call me a liar. It's another one of those things that like I would really only enjoy certain people's version of egg salad. I
Yes.
wouldn't go to festival and get like an egg salad, like a container of egg salad. I would need to trust.
Yeah.
I would need to trust the chef that I know that's making it. That I know you are making other good things that I enjoy, and I would try your egg salad. Potato
Yeah.
salad from Festival, goated. Festival's potato salad is like one of the better ones I've had.
I'm not a big potato salad guy either.
Hmm, interesting.
Especially not from the Germans.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Glad. Thanks for indulging me on your sandwich, Jordan.
You're
I
welcome.
saw that social video. I was like, that sounds like a fun little thing to end the pod with today. So, all right, folks. Like I said, let us know in the GSPN Discord what your favorite sandwich is. Um, love to hear it and criticize you if it's bad. Like if you put ham on a PB and J, I'm probably gonna say words that.
Romeo Dobbs' sandwich is very he specifically said not pickles, Pepperoncinis, as in
Pepperoncinis are
Randy.
good. I was very close to
Pepperoncinis, sorry.
putting pepperoncinis on my sandwich.
Pepperon.
I love a good pepperoncini. When you order Papa John's, free ads all over the place today. When you order Papa John's, they get the little pepperoncini in the box. It's the best part of Papa John's. Pizza, dog shit. Pepperoncinis, good stuff. Anywho's will be. Enter the GSP
The best
Discord.
part of Papa John's pizza is the pepperoncinis that they give.
I'm not wrong.
It's, there's a reckoning if you remember Papa John's.
Yeah, and the reckoning was them redoing their pizza because it's bad.
They're in the
Best
Domino
best
zone.
Domino's is good. They've come back.
No, I know, but they're in the Domino zone. This should be premium.
It
But
should
they're in the
be.
Domino zone where they have to be like, yeah, we made a new formula. It's like, yeah, you did that last year too.
Yeah. The
I
best part of
understand.
Papa John's, the pepperoncini and garlic butter. That's all they got going for them. You slather that pizza in garlic butter, of course it's gonna taste good. Anyways, Jordan mentioned it. This should have been a premium episode, but you got a little taste here in the main episode. If you want to hear our other ramblings of similar topics and uh, discussions of real life stuff as well as just other sports things, go over to gspn.info to subscribe to our premium Substack feed, where you can get this podcast free of ads as well as premium content that drops every week. There's a premium episode dropping today as you're listening to this. Ty, Andrew, and I believe are the ones that are going to be on that. Um, Talking about, I believe, a Sporkle quiz of the 2005 to present Milwaukee Brewers players to see if we can name as many as we can. So
Scott Patednik,
you can't,
Gabe Gross,
Jordan. We haven't done
Freddie
it yet.
Clark.
Jordan, stop it. But we've done Jeopardy. Jordan kicked ass at that. Um, Last week, Ty, Rohan, and Andrew drafted the finals players to see who would have the best team coming out of that, as the Celtics are up 3-0 now. But just a lot of good stuff, video wise and podcast wise. Like all of our premium videos go to podcasts as well, and you can listen to those premium podcasts in your podcast player, whether it's Apple or Spotify. There's instructions on how to do that and get that feed just directly uploaded to your podcast platform of choice. Jordan's been lighting his pen on fire with how much he's been writing over at the Substack. Him and Ty both. Audio listeners, Jordan intimidatingly clicked his pen. um, but yeah, just a lot of good stuff over at the GSPN Substack. $8 a month if you feel inclined to check out all of our exclusive content. Feel free to do so. We would appreciate it, and so we can continue bringing you more and more fun and extravagant offerings over at the premium Substack. But don't worry, all of your regular GSPN shows are still going to be in your podcast feeds on a regular basis anyways. Ty and Rohan just dropped a podcast on Monday, I believe it was, or Tuesday, talking about the Bucks' recent hire of Darvin Ham as they bring him back after his short stint in Los Angeles, as well as they did a full 33 pick of the NBA mock draft. Because I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, 33 is the Bucks' second round pick from the Blazers, I believe, in the Damian Lillard trade. So go check out that. They also checked out or did a couple of podcasts talking about draft prospects for the draft, as well as trying to find the Bucks' own Derrick Jones Jr., considering he was a standout for the Mavs prior to the finals. As of you're listening to this, the Brewers are facing off in a critical series against the Reds this weekend, but before that, they took 2 of 3 from the Toronto Blue Jays, and Andrew and Adam over at Cruising for a Bruising talked about that. So go check out that pod for all things Brewers as they sit in first place in the NL Central, as well as just all of their offerings on Make Time for This, their pop culture sort of drunk drawer pod. So with all that being said, thank you for listening. Go check out all of the other GSPN offerings and the premium Substack if you'd like. Even if you don't want to subscribe to the premium, you can subscribe to the Substack as a free subscriber to get notified of all of the things we're putting out and free previews that go with them as well. Then you can figure out if you want to subscribe or not. But regardless of it all, thank you all for listening and supporting us for what is this? I can't even. I think 127 episodes of Talk of the Tundra now, and
Is that right?
it's pretty close to that for Talk of the
Ah,
Tundra. I know it's obviously into the. It's close to a lot for for the Bucks feed,
yeah.
and probably close to. I'd probably say 150 for the Brewers feed ish, because they started
Pushing
April
200.
before we started in July, so probably pushing 200. And so, like I said, thank you all for supporting us. We obviously appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Go rate and review if you want on Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to go. This is the longest outro I think we've ever had, Jordan. So I'll start wrapping it up, and I'll just say thank you.
Thank you.